Guys, welcome back to the Hushlife podcast. I believe this is episode number 21. So we're trying to stay consistent, trying to do one a week. But I've got a special group of fellas on the podcast with me. Up there in the top left, you guys might have recognized Mr. Ryan Neely. He is works at Camp Chef, has for how long? Well, why don't you just introduce yourself, Ryan, and what do you do for Camp Chef?
I'll just introduce myself, sure. I'm Ryan Neely. I'm a Camp Chef guy. I've been at Camp Chef for about 9 years. I think, Casey, I've been working with you for probably 7 or 8 of those 9 years. And so, yeah, I'm at Camp Chef. I'm the marketing manager, so I handle all things marketing.
Sweet. If you guys watched the channel for a while, I've been using Camp Chef since, well, I've been using it way before Hush ever was created, but Camp Chef was probably one of the first companies that agreed to send me some free gear. And that was probably like 7 or 8 years ago. And I was super stoked because like I said, I've been using Camp Chef since I was a kid. And I remember going on deer hunts with my dad, and we had this old 2-burner. What was it called back there then? The like the original stove?
Cash cooker.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
And it seemed like, any father-son trips we went and did, any like hunting trips, camp trips, like we cooked on that thing religiously. I remember being a young boy and watching people cook. I had a scout leader that would cook a lot in Dutch ovens, and I thought that was pretty cool. And so when Camp Chef finally agreed to send me some gear, I was stoked, because it was like, you guys know, we always have to believe in a product, but we also have to believe in the people behind the product. So I was stoked to get some good product from those guys, and we've been working together ever since, which we appreciate your guys' partnership. It's been a good one, I think. So thank you guys. And then Mr. Beau Baty. If you guys don't know Beau knows. Who knows what reference that is? Do you know what reference that is, Beau?
Oh yeah, Bo Jackson, man.
When
I was growing up, I got called Bo Diddley, Bo Jackson, Bo Riley, Bo Derrick.
All the Bows.
All the Bows, man. Yeah, some of the old timers still call me those names.
I like it. I was trying to tell Logan and Matt when we were on the camp out, like the Beau Knows marketing campaign way back in the day with Bo Jackson. They had no idea what I was talking about.
That's funny.
Anyway, introduce yourself and what you do.
Yeah, man. Beau Baty. I live in Idaho Falls in Idaho, and basically we're an outfitting business and a family ranch. My wife and I started and built our little ranch here in Idaho Falls, and we run guided llama trips all throughout the West in Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado. And we offer DIY llama rentals and basically all things backcountry. It's kind of our focus. So yeah, and llamas are obviously kind of the center of that universe that we live in on a daily basis.
And I was blown away, Beau. But so if you guys watch Randy Newberg, you might recognize Beau. Beau's done a few videos with Randy and the crew over the years. And that's kind of like, I think Brian might have met you back in the day at like a BHA event.
Yep.
And so I didn't know exactly how big your business was, but I was blown away when we got to camp. We started talking about it. You guys have how many llamas?
We have right around 500 llamas now. And as far as like animals that are trained, ready to go into the backcountry, it's about right at 100. So it's taken over a decade to do that. And man, thankfully, public land advocates, people using the backcountry through the spring, summer, and fall have made that possible, and just reaching out to those people and getting in touch with them. And our business has grown and grown and grown. And basically we've just been able to sustain because of that. And our goal is not to have a big business. More or less, it was to have a ranch and raise a family, in this type of a setting and spend more time outdoors. And we're doing that. So goal accomplished,
Which I think it's super neat because I was telling somebody about this a couple of years ago, but it's sad to see that kind of like farming, ranching, that kind of lifestyle, I feel like it's kind of going away. I knew a lot of guys, like my grandpa and the older generation of people that had, some sort of ranch or farm, and, they made their money off that ranch, and then they passed down to their kid, and he might've made money off it. But it seems like almost like my generation or that generation below or younger is getting away from it. They're not continuing to ranch or farm, but they're just selling the property and moving on. And you're kind of taking a different approach. You grew up ranching and farming, but now you're growing this llama ranch so your kids can grow up with that lifestyle. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, big time. And yeah, I mean, even though I grew up on a ranch, I didn't inherit anything. I didn't get any land, and our family ranch is now gone, and it was there for over 130 years. And so we had to start over. And I look at the ranch and community now, whether you're raising, meat goats or cattle, if you want to start from scratch in today's world, it's not impossible, but it's pretty dang close to impossible to do it and to make a viable living. And it takes a lot of grit, and that's unfortunate. It used to be not as hard, and so you have to be almost have to be a heritage rancher farmer to get started nowadays. It's just buying land.
Yeah,
land so hard.
I can't imagine trying to get into farming right now because the land is worth so much money for for residential, for commercial. Like,
yeah,
try to make money off the land how they used to is tough anymore. And like you said, if you don't have land that you inherited, man, it'd be next to impossible, I would assume.
Next to impossible. Yeah.
But you're doing the darn thing anyway.
Trying to. We sure love it. And I really appreciate the opportunity. It's always fun to hang out with Ryan. He cracks me up, man. We had a really good time on this trip. And, I haven't met you, Casey, but obviously I watched your videos and seen you, all the things that you've done. And, a lot of the you just have helped a lot of people beyond your reach. And I've really admired you guys from afar for a really long time. And so,
I've got to interject here, Beau, because when we talked to you, the other day, like last week or whenever I asked you, how many llamas do you have? You shrugged it off and you're like, oh, just like 500. I'm like, 500? It took me a second. I'm like, oh my gosh. But then after spending a few days in camp, I mean, I'm with you, Casey. I'm sold on those llamas. I'm taking a totally different to some of the hunts I have planned for next year or whatever. I don't count much this year, but for stuff in the future, and stuff that I've done in the past, I thought I should have had llamas. I should have been doing this. And it didn't take long for me to start thinking that way. Just, I mean, after a day in camp or two or whatever, and then the whole trek back, that's all I was thinking about.
Well, yeah, so let's preface this. The reason I have these two gentlemen on is because we just returned from, I would have to say, probably one of my favorite trips I've done in a long time. We took some of Beau's llamas and we went into the backcountry of Idaho, and we just camped out for 3-4 days. And it was absolutely just so relaxing. But we just kind of want to walk you guys through this trip in a little more in depth. If you guys haven't already, go and watch the video. The video is now live. I will link it down below. Matt just got done cutting it and he uploaded it, so it is up on YouTube. Go check out the video. But this is going to be a little more in-depth look at that trip and like how it all came to be and everything that went on. So real quick, Beau, tell us, we talked about this at camp, we're going to have people that there's llama guys, there's horse guys, there's mule guys, there's goat guys now. Like you've kind of done all of them. What is, in your opinion, the benefit of maybe llamas over that next category, horses or mules or goats?
That's a good question. And that's probably the question I get asked a lot from people that are serious about looking into livestock. And it's because they want to know. They want to know, okay, I'm a family or a person that has no experience with livestock. Do I get a horse to help me out and share that experience? Do I get llamas? Do I get goats? Or do I solo backpack? Or do I front country, fish and hunt and explore the wilderness, And man, there's so many different things. And it's hard not to be, nowadays, as a llamaneer and advocate for llamas, it's hard not to be biased. But the truth of the matter is when I talk about this stuff, like I have 3 years of experience working with pack goats, and that was a struggle for me. It's not for some people. I've worked with horses. I was raised on a horse ranch, and I own just over 30 horses that we use for day rides down in southern Utah. And so I have a horse business still to this day that I almost never talk about for specific reasons. But my mom runs that business predominantly, and my wife and I own it and help her. But and then we have the llamas, and so I've been around horses and mules and different half breeds my whole life. And then llamas I've been doing for about 13, 14 years now. And I still don't ride my horses. And there's nothing wrong with it, but I sure love them. And they're just so different. And so llamas are easier to keep compared to horses, just the way it is. They're less expensive. They're not as big of an animal. You don't have to worry about some of the major rodeos and incidents that you'll have to do with horses. There's a shorter learning curve. Learning llamas is a lot easier. The gear and equipment is different and easier and simpler. And it takes less experience to be proficient at it than it does with horses and mules. And that's not biased. It's just fact, just the way it is, In 4 hours, imagine this. In 4 hours, somebody that I've never met calls me from Ohio and says, "Hey, Beau, I'm coming September 2nd. I'm going to do a 4-hour llama clinic with you. And I want to rent you llamas for 10 days. I said, "Okay." I've never met this person. We vet them a little bit, have them sign a waiver. They show up to the ranch. We do a 4-hour clinic and load up their truck and trailer with our trailer and our llamas and say, see you in 10 days. And we've been doing that for 12 years and we only have one incident of a llama getting a scrape on their calf in 12 years. And we do that about 900 people rent our llamas a year. And so if you look at that, it's like, okay, yeah, it's a pretty good track record. And you can never do that with a horse or a mule, no matter how good the horse was. So that's kind of like the biggest difference, right there. And there's a lot of complexities that make that up, but that's just kind of like the, looking through the glass window, what it looks like.
So I'll say this. I'm not a horse guy. I'm not a llama guy. I'm not neither, but I've done horse trips. I've done mule trips, and that was my first time doing llamas. And, from an outsider, a guy who doesn't know nothing, that was pretty slick, man. Like around horses, I can get, if it's a good horse or a good mule, I'm fine and comfortable. But when they start getting finicky or whatever, I'm like, oh shoot, man, it's going to be a rodeo.
Yeah.
And when that rodeo happens, it ain't fun. But with the llamas, it was easier than walking a dog. They just hung out. They were really good. I didn't have any, so for a first timer and a new guy with all of them, those were very slick. And the other thing, depending on how you look at it, I spent, you spend 6 hours on a mule or a horse, dude, you're saddle sore.
Yeah.
And if you're an experienced rider, that's a different story. But with this, I like getting out and hiking and moving my legs, but hiking in somewhere with a really light pack is totally different than hiking in with 60 pounds. And this made it slick.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. I remember being a young lad of probably 12 or 13 years old and being archery hunting with my dad. And we'd always just truck camp, right? But, my dad was subscribed to Bugle magazine and all that stuff. And I remember telling my dad specifically, Dad, the way that we're going to start killing elk is we have to get horses. We have to horseback in with a wall tent and set up our wall tent and have a little, stove in there. And we're going to hunt elk for 10 days in the backcountry. We need horses. My dad was like, I have no desire to ever ride a horse or want a horse. I'm terrified of them. And I remember thinking when I move out of the house and I'm my own man, I'm going to have horses. I'm going to be a horse guy. I'm going to horseback in everywhere, get away from the crowds and hunt. Well, I realized that I'm not much of a horse guy either, which I wanted to be. I still would love to be, but I am, for whatever reason, a little nervous around horses. And I've been on a lot of horse trips and never really had much of any issues. I saw one crash one time, which was terrifying. And where the pack horses got tangled up and rolled over on the trail. Luckily, the guy I was with knew what was going on, so he fixed that. But so I kind of got that out of my brain here in the last 5 years. I'm probably not going to ever be a horse guy. But the llamas are 100% different. You can still, I think, get that. Because in my head, I would look at these articles in Bugle magazine and see the wall tent and the horses. And in my head, I envisioned that's elk hunting. That's the true elk hunt. But it was more of the adventure is what I was seeing, right? But you could definitely still capture that adventure with llamas. And that's exactly what we did. So going back to the trip, we loaded up. There was 6 of us total, right?
Yeah.
And we loaded up, I believe, 8 llamas.
Yeah.
And we went in like 3.5, 4 miles in the backcountry. And we have a saying at Hush, and I think you guys have a saying at Camp Chef as well. Just because you're in the backcountry doesn't mean you have to eat garbage. You can still eat like a king if you have the right equipment and have a little bit of knowledge of how to do it. And we definitely ate like kings for 4 days in the backcountry of Idaho, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. That was awesome.
The best thing about this trip, this is what I've told other people, is I've been on other trips, you know, on hunting or whatever. And like you wake up before the sun comes up and you're out, you're going, and you're just going. And this is one of the first or only, I mean, very few trips where, you know, it was great. We had our base camp, and what was our plans? We didn't have any plans.
No agenda.
That's
It was
what I love.
awesome. And you know, like if you want to go out and fish, Casey, you're like what, 5 steps from the water? That's where I caught most of my fish.
I was falling asleep the first night listening to fish eat off the top, like 5 feet from my head. I was that close.
Yeah.
I fell asleep listening to fish eat. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a good time.
We all
So
have such busy lives. It was really nice. Man, that was an awesome trip. I had the time of my life. And no agenda was awesome, wasn't it? Just whatever we wanted to do.
And then that first night, so
Oh yeah.
the you know, I wasn't as prepared for rain. I took like my like $15 jacket I got from TJ Maxx. I mean, I got great rain gear, but I'm like, whatever. We might get a little thunderstorm, dude. It dumped pretty good on us. But that first night, those thunderstorms,
wow.
yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, if you guys watch the video, you can see we're kind of in this, like, I wouldn't call it a box canyon, but it was like this bowl canyon. It's like surrounded by giant cliffs and rock. And so when the thunderstorm came in, it was like we were in this amphitheater of thunder, and it was wild. You know, yeah, Ryan, like we had gotten almost zero rain in Idaho this summer. So I was the same way. I was like, it calls for rain, but is it really going to rain? So we weren't the most prepared. I had my first light jacket, which was good. But going back to pack me in, like how much, let the people know, like what is a llama capable of packing?
Well, usually on a trip, you'll take like on a backpack summer trip, like 1 llama per person is pretty normal, pretty average. Obviously, we had excessive food, we had excessive float tubes, we had camera gear, and I had no idea we are going to have 3 guys up there toting cameras and camera gear around. So I was like, when we were packing, I was like, we'll just bring 1 more. That's the cool being the owner of the business is like, you want to take an extra llama, you take an extra llama.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, geez, Louise, we had so much gear on the way in. Most of the llamas were around 80 pounds. We had a couple in that 90, 100-pound mark. But a standard like day in and day out packing, 80 pounds is a pretty good mark, you know, of what you pack on your llamas. And I tell people is like when you're packing camp gear, for example, camp gear, 80 pounds of camp gear is about equivalent to 90 to 100 pounds of meat. So if you're meat hauling and you put it on the llamas properly, lash it on properly, that's kind of the equivalent. And so, yeah, I always try to, when I'm solo hunting or, you know, doing backcountry trips, I try to have 1 llama that can carry all the gear and equipment if they need to, and then the rest of them to haul in meat, you know. So I like to put camp on 1 ideally, and then meat haul the rest. So anyway, but yeah, we had.
Beau, you're saying that the meat hauls better than camp gear.
Yeah, that's what I'm
like
saying.
You can fit an extra 10, 20 pounds of meat versus stove and tent and sleeping bag stuff.
Yep.
Is that because of the fit or how?
Yeah.
Why is that?
It's basically the fit. You know, when you look at a pannier is going to be about 16 inches wide, and then you put, and that's on the side of the llama. And let's call this the side. And if you put meat's going to be, you know, anywhere from 6 to 12 inches at the base, and then it's going to get narrower and narrower and narrower closer to the llama the higher up towards the back you go. So it rides closer to the body. You can ride it higher up towards the spine, which they carry easier. And the comparison would be like having your backpack ride below your hips, you know, below your waistband. And so if your pack does that, it's just harder to carry. But if your pack rides higher and you're centered your weight, it carries it a lot easier. And so I think those are 2 main reasons why they carry meat so much easier. And you'll see them. And after doing it for so many years and hauling literally hundreds of game animals out of the mountains. I'm like, yeah, okay, it's legit. They can actually carry that heavier weight meat packs easier than they carry the bulky camp gear packs.
Yeah. So I think you were telling me, Beau, like when you go to like a solo elk hunt, like say you're going out for 5 days doing an elk hunt by yourself, you typically take 2 llamas with you?
Yeah, two's kind of my go-to. That's usually what I have left in the pasture during elk season. So everyone's renting them out. You know, three llamas, you can get pretty much your entire camp and your elk out all in one trip. And if you have ultralight camp and on your back and you take a little bit of meat, then 2 llamas would suffice, you know. And but there's a big difference. It was a long time in my hunting, you know, life before I killed a mature bull elk. You know, I was killing bull elk from 2-year-olds to 5-year-olds for a long time. And then when you kill a 10-year-old bull, it's a big difference. They're a lot bigger. And just straight up all the way across the board from cape head to the quarters. And so when you're going to be killing mature bull elk, you need 3 llamas, but everything else 2 will suffice. You know, younger bulls and cows, two llamas is just fine.
So we took 8 llamas in, we got there, and we had gear scattered everywhere. We took, what stoves did we take, Ryan? We took the Camp Chef Mountaineer, right?
Yeah, we had a good cook setup. We had the Mountaineer, which is like an aluminum lightweight stove. It's bigger, 2-burner, cook space, you know. For perspective, you could fit like 2 full fillets of salmon on there or something. And then we also had similar size, the Everest stove, which those are both awesome and great for this camp. And it was nice having that extra two stoves here, just because we could cook better and eat a little better. If I was hunting, I wouldn't do the kitchen setup that we had. I'd do something a little bit different. But knowing that we didn't have much on the agenda, you know, we decided to up the food game a little bit.
We set up the food game.
Dude, we stepped the food game. Like I was impressed, man. I was telling you, Ryan, like I'm usually in charge of like if we're all hunting together, like the Hush crew's hunting together, I typically do like the grocery list and like prepare all the meals. And so I'm always like cooking stuff ahead. But there's a lot of logistics to that. And I'm not, and typically we're doing, you know, a truck camp where I can have 2 or 3 coolers set up with all the different food. But we ended up taking one soft Yeti cooler, and you were dialed, man. We had steak pasta and vegetables the first night. We had salmon fillets one night, like hot breakfast every day, breakfast burritos, eggs, hash browns, man. We ate like we had ice cold Mountain Dews and Dr. Peppers, which always seems like a funny thing. I'm not much of a soda drinker, but you know, if you get done after a long hike, you're chasing elk, like a cold soda always sounds very refreshing, which they are.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I've liked about those aluminum Mountaineers is that a lot of the stoves out there in the industry and as outfitting, I was telling you, we have over 300 double burner stoves in our fleet, right? And we just got 5 brand new Mountaineers. The coolest thing that our guides just talked, I went up to the warehouse yesterday and they're like, you know what's awesome is that they can put a big pan on one burner and they can have 9 liters worth of water boiling for coffee at the end of the day or the next morning and for doing dishes. And all the other stoves out there, you can't do that. You know, you can't have 2 big setups. And so needless to say, the Mountaineer is not in stock at the Baty warehouse in Driggs. All the guides have pulled that and
that's their go-to. Yeah, you're not. It's a 2-burner stove that you're not limited on space. That's for sure. Like it's a true double burner that you can put 2 legitimate size pots on, and you're not suffering because it's super heavy. It's an aluminum box basically, and like the specs. Like how much does that stove weigh?
Oh, it's pretty light. I think it's like 10 pounds, which is pretty light. I mean,
for what it is.
It's surprisingly lightweight, and there's a leg set to it. We brought the leg set, which was nice because that opened up table space, which is, as we found, is high real estate in camp because the table's out, everything goes on it. But yeah, the food was awesome. It was good, great company, and I think a lot of that, I will say too, prep, man. Like the more prep you do, maybe not the more, but the way you prep the food, if you want to eat it in a great camp, the better. You know, and if I was doing a hunt trip, I'd probably do a little bit different, but some of the meals would be the same. Like the last night we had that barbecued pulled pork because I knew that, you know, we might be out fishing late one night and get back and we're all tired and nobody, you know, we just want to sit around the fire. But we want to eat good. And so that was an easy meal. I smoked pulled pork here at home, vac sealed it. It was ready to go. And really all we did was drop it in the pot, heat it up. Had a quick coleslaw that the sauce was prepped.
Yeah.
And you just mix that together. And it was really easy. I mean, that was like the easy meal that didn't require anything. But if you do a little bit of prep work, you know, chop your onions, you know, if you're doing fajitas, chop your onions and your peppers, put all that together, throw it in a bag. You could vac seal it. And then the other thing too is, you know, if you're doing a soup or something, you could do like a clam chowder or whatever, salmon chowder soup, vac seal it, freeze it, save that for day 4 or 5, and then you got a big ice block in there.
Yeah.
And then when you get back into camp, you're tired, you're hungry. Within minutes, you got a hot dinner that's delicious. So all those are just, you know, there's so many little tips and tricks that come with experience, you know?
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. Like I remember as a kid, and I think I told the story, we did a video kind of, we did a video with Camp Chef a couple years ago, and I told the story of, you know, I grew up elk hunting with my dad every year, and we usually camp out of either a trailer house or you would have some sort of camper on the back of this truck. But we always had a nice camp. But you know, for whatever reason, for years, my dad would just go super easy on the meals. It would be like cup of ramen, maybe like some pasta out of a box. Like it was something that didn't take very much time. And we started.
And I'll be honest, a good cup of ramen, sometimes that hits the spot.
Shut your mouth. I hate that stuff. My kids live off it though, so I do appreciate it. It's easy here. But yeah, like I think that's a giant tip is you can eat really well, even if you're doing a truck camp and you're not limited on like space or weight. Like you can eat really well if you do a little bit of prep work. And it's nice because it doesn't take a whole lot of time. Like you get back from chasing elk all day, usually it's well after dark, you get back, you're starving, you want something warm in your belly, but you also are trying to get to bed so you can wake up super early. So a little bit of prep work before a hunt. And I love it because you can use, you know, all the facets of the Camp Chef lineup. Like you were saying, you use your pellet smoker before you you know, cook the pork, and then we used the, you know, Mountaineer to warm up once we were in camp. We had an amazing meal. Took you some prep time, but really only took maybe 10 minutes when we were at camp to heat that stuff up and eat it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty quick. And the cool thing too is we had a bigger camp, right? There's 6 guys, you know, and so we had a lot of food. But realistically, if you're doing an elk hunt or a deer hunt or something, you know, like I said, I'd do the meals different because I'm there to hunt, not to eat good food. But not a lot, because you can do some of that prep work and have some of the good meals. You could throw your week's worth of food in one of those soft-sided Yeti bags, and things would be pretty slick. Beau, what's like a typical? What do you do when you're out for a you know, 7-10 days on a mule deer hunt?
Yeah,
like just you, if you're going solo, you know, do you do, like when I backpack hunt, I do mountain house stuff or freeze dried, you know, peak refuel or whatever that stuff is, you know, I'll do that. And those are great and they're good, but after a couple of days, I'm ready for a cheeseburger.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Before I dive into that, my favorite meal was the pasta with the steak and the veggies. That was good, right?
It was amazing.
I think I got a picture of it. Let's see here. That was delicious.
Well, I don't know what you guys' favorite was, but that was.
Yeah, that was top. That was probably top 5.
Yeah, that was good.
Ever had in the backcountry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
the
Ryan,
baguettes. I forgot the baguettes.
Ryan
dude.
checked all the boxes, dude.
Yeah.
We're not gonna have pasta without baguettes, right? If you have pasta, dang well better have baguettes. And we had
Beau cooked those steaks and they were pretty spot on, man. They were
man.
It was good.
You know, so on a backcountry hunt, the first day I will try to keep it simple, and so I'll pre-cook my meal and have like a stew or something with lots of veggies, meats, lentils, and stuff, and I'll cook it, vacuum seal it, and then I'll just heat it up, in water when I get to camp. So that's kind of a day one. And then day 2, 3, and 4 on a 7 or 10 day hunt, I'll have a lot of as fresh stuff as I can. And I usually can stretch that fresh stuff into day 5. And so I'm doing potatoes and onions, and, you know, I'll stay up late at night through the dark cooking. And I think that extra hour of doing that helps me push through that longer hunt. A lot of people don't realize, like, if you just go slam a 10-day hunt and you go home, you get back to the office warehouse and start working. But for an outfitter, it's like, it's 10 days, 2 days home, 10 days, 2 days home, 7 days, 2 days home. And so, like, it's boom, 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 boom. And so if you don't replenish your body while you're there, you can't, after 30 days, you're just done. And we start guiding in March. And so it just is a long, long season. And so when the fall comes, you're already tired and gutted. And so you got to take care of yourself. And then day 6 or 7 through 10 is pretty much, we do our own freeze-dried meals. And so using all whole foods, and we just use Mylar bags. We have a couple recipes on YouTube, and that's kind of my go-to after that. And I'm really hoping that either myself or someone in camp is killed so we can have some fresh protein. And I always bring extra veggies and onions and stuff to cook with. So yeah, that's kind of my go-to system. So yeah, I don't pull Brady Miller and eat granola bars and stuff for 12 days when I only have 8 days of food.
Have you hunted with Brady?
I haven't, but
he pushes that stoveless mill thing, right?
Yeah. And he's awesome. He's good at it. He's stronger than me, though.
Yeah, I feel like he eats that way when he's at home. I feel like he's just eating like those disgusting like power bars or whatever they are, just like on the regular.
I could do that for a couple days, and then I'm probably tapped out. I think it's a mental game. I kind of want to try it though, because I'm interested in that.
Well, don't try it when we go to Alaska, because we're eating good, Ryan.
Yeah, we'll eat good.
Oh, that's right, dude. When do you leave for Alaska, Casey? Next week?
Yeah, we leave on the 11th, man. So less than a week. Next Wednesday.
You got your gear ready?
No. Bo. I'll probably like on the 10th, I'll start thinking about it. And then that night I'll just be in like this frenzy of trying to find everything I need. Because it's not only like a big trip, but it's like the first hunting trip of the year. Yeah. So everything's like packed away. But so yeah, the guys we're going with the Weatherby crew. And the plan is that we're flying into Fairbanks, renting a car, driving up the Hall Road like 12 hours. And then we're going to get on an airboat, and they're going to run us up this river for like 30 miles and drop us off basically. And we're going to hunt for however many days it takes to fill 5 tags. And then we're going to have these blow up rafts, 5 guys, 5 tags. Last year they killed. Yes. Well, so they're called alpaca rafts, and they're like blow up canoes. So I think they only weigh like 7 pounds. And you can actually put gear inside of the tube. They have like zippers that you can unzip and put all your gear in them and then blow them up. Wow. I'm going to take it a step, because these guys are like, well, you know, last year and they did very minimum. Like the guy that ran them up the airboat last year was kind of like giving them a hard time. Like, you guys have no gear. And they're like, well, they were planning on hiking in, and then they found this airboat at the last second. So these guys are trying to do the same thing this year. And they're like, yeah, we just take, you know, like our little strikers, our little camp trust strikers, and we'll just do Mountain House. I'm like, guys, we have all this, like, we can like take upwards of like 125 pounds a person. We're talking about taking Mountain House. Like, once again, like, you can do it, but for 7 days, man, Mountain House after like 2 days just guts me. And so I actually am going to fly up one of those rafts we were talking about, one of those river rat rafts.
You are?
Yeah. I got the approval yesterday. And so now we can take upwards, because it's always like you can take a bunch of gear in. Like, you can take a bunch of gear in because you're going out in on an airboat, and that can take, you know, unlimited amounts of weight. But coming out on the little rafts, like, then that's where you get limited. So in my head, I'm like, I'm going to fly up a raft that I can put 1,200 pounds of gear on if we need to, like with caribou and everything. And I'm going to take up my little Rainier, and I'm going to take some frozen meals that I prepare here, and I'm going to eat well. And if those guys want to join me, good. If they want to eat their Mountain House, good on them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So you're you can take the river rat boat in the jet boat.
Yep.
All right.
I'm taking a very minimalized look like river rat, it's only going to have one seat, which normally has 3 seats. It usually has a casting platform on the front. I'm not taking that. I'm basically taking the raft itself and part of the frame with the rower seat in it. And so I can, it's going to break down to like, I think it's going to be like 90 pounds total. And it will fold down into like a little container about like this. So it's not going to take much space. And yeah, we're going to see how it goes. Plus, I'm going to feel way safer on that than one of those alpaca rafts, which I guess they're super legit, but like,
they are cool.
Yeah.
Well, dude, that sounds brilliant, because then you can haul. I mean, if you got 5 guys, 5 rafts, dude, something's going to go down. So something's going to happen. Like, you're in a long ways away. And if you got that big raft to kind of be there for, incidentals and slow gear on that thing's brilliant. Do they sell like a modified version of that thing, or are you just modifying your whole version?
So pretty much when you order them, what they were telling me, like they're just like, let me borrow one. So they're just going to kind of give me a modified version of it. But you can basically modify that thing however you want it when you order it from them. Like if you want, normally it comes with like 1 chair in the back. You can put 2. If you have a couple kids you want to put back there, put your wife up front, whatever. Like, but you can kind of like custom order like what you want from them. So, but anyway, so yeah, back to our trip. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. So we get in there, we have all the gear that we need to live like kings for weeks on end. And our really only agenda was to have fun, which should be the agenda of any trip you go on. And then hopefully catch some fish. And we were literally camped next to this, how big, like, you think that was a 50-acre lake?
Yeah, it was big. I don't know, but I'd
It
say
was 300. No, I measured it. It was 150 yards across at that short point.
Okay.
So it's probably 300 yards long by 200 yards wide.
Yep.
Whatever that equals out to be, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the math on how to figure out acreage, but
it was good. It was decent.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we were just basically there to enjoy each other's company, hopefully create some content and catch some fish. And I think we did all those things. The first day we were hoping, because how many species of fish were you saying were supposed to be in that lake, Beau?
There's supposed to be 4, and we caught 2 for sure.
Yep.
Right.
So yeah. Cutthroat trout, grayling are the ones we caught. The only ones we didn't catch were brook trout, and you were saying bull trout, maybe?
Yeah, there's been rumors of bull trout being in there, but without I mean, there was no water coming into the lake and no water leaving, just so low.
Very dry year, yeah.
So mostly grayling.
Yeah,
probably what 3 or 5 to 1 grayling per cutthroat.
Yeah.
And I've caught grayling in both Alaska and in Canada years ago, but that was the first grayling I ever caught in the state of Idaho.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's the first grayling I've ever caught was this last week.
Oh, was it really?
They ate good, Casey.
Dude.
You got to share your recipe. Those were good.
I think we made that recipe on the fly. I think we had some leftover breadcrumbs, right?
Yeah.
And then I did have some trout seasoning. Some who makes that stuff?
Oh, that was the High Mountain seasoning.
High Mountain trout seasoning. Mm-hmm. And then so we mixed that together and just basically gutted the fish, packed it on the inside, on the outside, and then we ran out on the last fish. So we used a bag of jalapeno chips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jalapeno chips to batter the last one, and we just fried them up there on the Mountaineer. And I was a little worried because I had it a little hot at first, and so I was kind of like baking the skin. And then we made a little cover with the tinfoil. And dude, I was stoked on how they turned out. Grayling eat really, really well.
Yeah, it's like a white fish, lighter than trout, but they were good. Those were good eating.
Which excites me because when we're in Alaska, we're gonna be camped next to a river, and it's supposedly chock full of grayling too. So probably eat grayling on a couple times in Alaska. Have you eaten mini grayling before, Beau?
Yeah, I've eaten tons of grayling. A lot of the lakes, near eastern Idaho have quite a few grayling, and then we go to a couple lakes in Montana that have grayling in the spring. And but I grew up in Utah, and I never caught any grayling in Utah. Never even knew what grayling was until I moved to Idaho. But forever I targeted to try to hit as many grayling lakes as I could, and then now I just want to have a good time. So
yeah. Well, that's part of Beau's business is they do summer pack trips with, people like families want to pack in, and you guys do a lot of like the fishing kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, especially in places like the Wind Rivers and Yellowstone National Park that are famous fisheries already. And so we go there a lot in the summer. And we originally were trying to did a lot of hunting, and then we traded a lot of our hunting stuff for summer use. And then we started doing fishing because our guides loved fishing. And I want to go. If I'm going to guide, I want to guide a fishing trip. And now it's starting to take off pretty well, very organically, where people want to come and do a custom trip. And I think that's kind of the way the market's going. They want to plan their custom trip and location, whether it's Winds, Yellowstone area, Yellowstone ecosystem, Jackson, Gravant, wherever. And they want to fishing. Usually, they want to incorporate fishing of some kind. And so, last 3 years, it's really been going that way. We also still do a lot of big backpacking trips and expeditions up to some of these wild places like the Thoroughfare, in Yellowstone, and operate Rocky Mountain National Park up in Mummy and areas like that. But yeah, the fishing is something that we're really excited about because we want to do more of it.
And the age range on people, you were talking in camp. I mean, you've had young kids, I don't know what age, up to, 60, 70-year-old people out there.
Yeah, we have, so our oldest client that we've ever taken into this is not like front country and a camp trailer. This is backcountry, 5 to 7 days. A lot of kids, 5 years old is kind of our minimum for a commercial trip, but the DIY llama rentals, kids can be any age,
Mm-hmm.
And then our oldest client's 91. So,
wow.
And she's come with us for 3 years.
That's awesome.
And
well,
anyway,
going back to the llamas, man, I think this is what's really special to me, to experience the llamas. And we kind of talked about this in camp, but it definitely, I feel like, and it feels like it can extend a guy's hunting life cycle, right? Like,
yeah,
take a guy like my dad, for example, who, man, used to just hike my butt into the dirt when I was a kid, and he was in his prime of his life. Now he's getting to that older stage, and he still wants to get after it, but like if I'm not around, or my Logan's not on a trip with my dad, like, and he goes out and kills an elk, he's going to struggle, I think, to get that elk packed out by himself, and especially in a timely manner before it spoils. So yeah. Even if he never decided he wanted to do like a backpacking llama hunt, if he had llamas in his truck camp, where if he killed an elk a couple miles from camp, he could very easily cut that elk up by himself, go back to camp, get the llamas, and go and pack that thing out in a reasonable fashion and time.
Yeah, definitely. And not have to worry too much, really, and then you being away wouldn't have to worry about them. And we have a lot of people that do that in certain areas in mountain ranges. They just kind of cater to that style. Have a base camp, hunt this range one day, then hunt this one, and then this one. And so when people are successful, they just come back to camp, replenish and grab the llamas and go. So a lot of guys will rent llamas for just that purpose. And a group of hunters at a base camp will rent 2 llamas, even though they all go in different direction each day. And then when someone tags out, they come and get the llamas at base camp. And so that's kind of been a good way for people that are looking for, an economical way to rent llamas, is to split it up between the team of base campers,
Yeah, for sure.
For game retrieval. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that idea, man, because I want to see my dad out in the woods until, he can't walk anymore. But I worry that, if he ever gets something down, or when he does get something down, that, he's going to struggle to get it out if I'm not around to go and help him. But I think llamas kind of like would be the answer for him. And would say I'm a little after my prime in life, maybe, I don't know, but I'm going to eventually get to that point as well. And I'm going to still want to be out in the woods. And if my kids aren't around to help me, like, I don't want that to limit how long I can be in the woods. Cause you always hear people, or I've always heard people be like, well, I could have killed a bull, but it was in a place, I didn't want to pack one out of. Yeah. With llamas like that shouldn't really exist in somebody's head. If you can get yourself out of there, then your llamas can get your elk out of there.
That's right.
Beau, how do they do off trail? So if you kill something deep in a drainage, you're bushwhacking to get in there, how do those llamas do just cruising through whatever?
Yeah, man.
Nasty.
It's pretty wild. I mean, you guys have seen moose, right, operate in the bottom of drainages when it's thick and willows, and they just mow through it. You're like, dude, they do it so gracefully. Well,
Yeah.
llamas do the same thing, and especially in stuff like that. And I tell people the rule of thumb is this: that if you can get into a place and get out of a place without the need of using trekking poles, you don't have to use them. You can do it on your own 2 feet. Llamas can do it. So that is kind of the go-to. As long as you don't have to use 4 appendages, you're good to go. And that's the rule of thumb, and it's very, very accurate. It applies to most situations. And that's why I like llamas is I'll go in 3 or 4 miles on a trail, and then the goal is to be 2 to 4 miles off of a trail. I don't want to hunt where everyone else wants to hunt. I call it the betweener country.
Yeah.
And it's where the horse guys aren't camping, aren't hunting. It's where the backpack guys don't get to because they can't stay there long enough. Water's an issue, and then packing the game out in the timing matters is just too daunting. And so that's where I find myself hunting more with llamas, which is a pretty game-rich environment when you start digging into it. So
One of the coolest things that I saw on this trip we were hiking back out. This was neat. And we were on the trail, and there's a huge boulder to the right-hand side of our trail, right? And the llamas were packed with pack gear. So the width of the llama, I mean, 8 to 12 inches, those panniers on each side. The one I was behind, I can't remember what llama it was.
Strider.
And yeah, Strider. And Beau turns back and says, "Watch those llamas go around the rock." Dude, those things just, I'm like, they're going to scrape up against, we're going to have smashed up gear. The llama's going to get pissed and stuck on something. No, dude, they just knew. It was awesome.
They know their load. Yeah, I think that was cool to see because, I've been on horses before where it feels like horses try to rub up against the trees for whatever reason, maybe to knock me off or whatever. But it's like, you're worried you're gonna get your leg pinched in between a horse and a tree. They don't care, man. Those llamas knew exactly like how wide their load was, and they would make their way around a rock so the panniers weren't scraping up, nothing was happening. Do you have to train them that way, Beau, or do they just know?
It is intuitive for them, but they also have to learn. And what I did to teach them, the reason why I pointed that out to you, Ryan, on that trip is you remember the pack raft, how wide that was?
Yeah.
And so we had a bunch of sleeping gear that was like 28 inches wide on one side. On his other side, he has a pack raft. And so he just looks like just this big old hippo going down the mountain.
Yeah, it was a big load.
Very odd and awkward load. And I was like,
not heavy, just
not heavy,
stuff.
Just weird. And he missed the rocks and saw him go. He had to go way out. He knew that. Most of their packs was 12 to 18 inches wide. So I was just really impressed by that. When I saw, I was like, Ryan, watch the rest of these guys, But they definitely know. And so when I teach them, I go out to the desert, on Highway 33, and I put their packs on, and I'll make them really bulky, and I'll walk them for miles in and out of the sagebrush, not on a trail, just pick my own path. And they learn to follow me, but then they learn their pack dimensions, and they learn what they can push through and what they shouldn't push through, what they should go around, and what to duck over and what to jump over. And so, we spend a lot of time training them. But then once you get a pack string of really well-trained llamas, the young ones behind them, as they get in the string, they learn so fast. I can train a llama, I would say 70% faster now than I could in the past. The part of that's I learned and have better systems, but also having trained expert llamas that train the young ones.
So you have like say a new llama that hasn't ever packed before. You put them behind a couple of really good llamas, and they kind of watch them and learn that way.
Yeah, and they'll make dumb mistakes, and then the llamas in front of them will get really upset with them. And and it's not like they're cussing them out, but they will. They'll kind of bark at them and go back and spit at them, and they'll get really mad at them.
Interesting.
And so they learn very quick how to do that. It's really interesting to watch. So
what I think is impressive with llamas from what I saw compared to when I've done horse trips is if you're going back into the backcountry with horses, you got to pack supplemental feed for them, like I would say 80% of the time. And so you usually take in a string of horses, and maybe 1 or 2 of them are just dedicated to packing feed for the horses so they can have enough food while you're there.
Right.
Llamas, you really don't need any supplemental feed when you pack them in, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I knew the grass was going to be low on this trip, and it was. And so we just did a long lead and moved them twice a day. And the grass was just, less than 4 inches. It was pretty meek. And then I bring in just a few pounds of cookies for them just to kind of help them with some nutrition, and away you go. And so llamas it's pretty amazing what they want to eat and then what they live on as far as quantity in the backcountry. So
Yeah, so we just had them strung out on a long lead, and we, like you said, moved them twice a day. They had plenty of food. The other thing that's impressive is the amount of water that or I should say, the amount of water they don't need. Like,
yeah.
What were you telling me? Like the first day they'll drink upwards of a gallon, maybe you were saying?
Yeah, on the pack in, like those llamas, because you asked me, it's like, okay, well, I'll just calculate it. Because I gave you a response like, okay, I think these llamas are going to drink a gallon on the first day, and they're going to drink half gallon on the second day, nothing on the third, and a little bit on the fourth. Well, we got rain, right, on day 2, and they got a lot of moisture from the grass. On day 1, 8 llamas went through 6 gallons of water. On day 2, 8 llamas went through 7 gallons of water. Day 3, they went through 2, and on day 4, they went through 3. Again, we had rain towards the end, so I think they captured a lot of that through the grass and moisture. And so all said and done, the llamas had what, 24, 25 gallons of water in 4 days, 8 llamas. And so, yeah, it was a good opportunity to calculate. I don't have a chance to do that very often.
So how much does a gallon of water weigh?
8 pounds.
9 to 10 pounds. Well, if it's in a container anyway.
So we'll say 24 gallons. So it went through 200 pounds of water. Is that right?
200 pounds.
200 pounds.
Sounds about right.
But if you take, and that's 8 llamas. So what you were saying too, Beau, benefit of the llamas is if you're wanting to camp wherever you want to camp, it doesn't have to require water, right?
Doesn't have to require water, right?
If you're taking 2 llamas in, one's carrying your 70 to 80 pounds of camp, the second llama is carrying just water for them and for you. So you can pretty much camp anywhere you want, not have to be next to a water source, and you can survive for what, 5 days?
Usually almost always 4. And then on day 4, you'll like, okay, I need to go replenish. Where am I going? And you might get all the way through day 4 and go get water the morning of day 5. And so I do that now. No, even if I'm camped by water during a hunting trip, I'll try to have 1 llama minimum carry water. That way I have a guaranteed meat llama on the way out. Sometimes people pack all their gear on the llamas and they get back there and then they have to bring all their gear out. And they forget you need to have something to pack your meat out, you need to have the space. And not only that, but even if you have a camp right next to water, you still have to filter it, right? You still have to go get it. You still have to go through that process. And if you take away that entirely, you just simply spend more time hunting. And I'm a big advocate for that. So.
Yeah, so I just did the equation. If you take, according to our 4-day trip, those 8 llamas drank upwards of 200 pounds of water. So that would mean 25 pounds a piece is what they drink in 4 days. So if you're going in with 2 llamas, they're going to need 50 pounds of water for 4 days. So you can put upwards of 80 pounds on a llama. So 50 pounds of water for them. What does a guy drink? 10 pounds maybe in 4 days? A gallon? Like I probably drink a gallon in 4 days, if that. I'm terrible at drinking water. So you have all the water you want. You can go and hunt and camp anywhere you want and have all the things you need. And like you were saying, man, I love the idea of hunting longer. You're not worried about, first of all, if you're not worried about packing your whole camp in on your back and being just totally exhausted when you get there and maybe having to take off, a half a day off to rest. You have pretty much fresh legs when you get there. You're not having to deal with the chore of going and getting water, then filtering the water every day. You have everything you need and you can just go, man. And you can be such a more efficient hunter, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I've been a horse hunter or hunted with horses. I've hunted with goats. I've hunted with llamas, and I've been a backpack hunter. And I've done it all for multiple years too. And I think that the most effective and efficient way to hunt the backcountry in multiple states, multiple regions, and from August all the way through December, the most effective way to do that in the backcountry is with llamas, and obviously I have my reasons, but I've tested them, I've gone and done it and tested it, and I sure love it. But, I am the llama guy, so don't believe everything I say.
Stay in your llama lane. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were like halfway in, I think like an hour into the hike in, and both me and Ryan looked at each other and I'm like, sold, I'm a llama guy.
Yeah.
I'll do this.
Yeah, that's pretty slick.
I don't know why, but like I went into it thinking, and I'd watched your videos you've done with Randy. I've watched some other guys that have hunted with llamas. But whatever reason, I went in thinking like they're stubborn or something. They're hard to like to get to walk behind you or whatever. And given like Beau is a llama guy, he has probably the best llamas in the country. Or, but dude, like Ryan said, it was easier than walking a dog. You know, like when I'm on the back of a horse, for whatever reason, I think they can just see through me. They know I'm just like, I'm not gonna like demand that they like not eat, but like every horse I'm on just wants to sit and eat off the side of the trail, like nonstop. And so I'm always like the last guy. The llamas didn't even like, maybe like a couple times that, you know, Hugo would bend down, grab some grass, but for the most part, it was easier than walking a dog.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I always love to hear the new perspective, you know.
Yeah.
I see it do it. Did you guys see any of the weird stuff that they ate? Did you watch them eat any of the bark and pine needles and stuff?
Beau, that's the one that I learned a lot. For all you guys listening out there, I would just recommend just go out with Beau or whatever. Go out with these llamas for a day. You learn a lot. And one of the things that you pointed out, you said, pull into camp and watch what they eat. And that's typically what the deer in the area are going to eat. So if you find that food, there's going to be deer in that area. And you know, I've always struggled with plant types and what animals eat or whatnot. That was very interesting to me. I started picking up on it. And so then on the hike down, you know, we'd stop and take a break. I'd watch what they're eating. And yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting. And that's kind of like one of those pro tips you don't share with too many people. You know, a lot of people don't pick up on it and won't realize it. But yeah, go ahead and spill the beans, Ryan. But
Oh, shoot.
it,
Sorry. Don't tell me your secrets.
And to add upon that, like one of the things that I realized, I found it in some really cold freaking places, man. I hunted up by Shoto in Augusta. One day it was 40 degrees, and then the next day it was negative 27. It stayed like that for 4 or 5 days. And so, like, you can, if you watch your llamas when it's raining or storming, or watch it with the moon phases, and you're in your base camp and you're watching what's going on, you have a really good idea of what your elk and deer are doing. So if your llamas are bedding, the elk and deer are bedded. If your llamas are up and eating and moving around, that's what the elk and deer are doing. And so at night in September, if you got like a serious moon going on and your llamas are out grazing in the middle of the night and you can hear them up and going, it's like, you know that your elk are doing the same thing. And it's been a really good learning experience for me over the years. And sometimes you guess like, okay, this is what they're doing. You look at your llamas like, why are they eating right now? And then you see like, why are they sleeping right now? You know, why are they bedded down? And it's very interesting to learn. And so I can get pretty close, but sometimes I'm opposite of what I would think. But
interesting.
Anyway.
Yeah, I noticed like all your llamas did the same thing. Like I didn't look over there too many times and have like half the llamas bedded and the other half eating. It seemed like when they were eating, they were all eating. And when they're all bedded, they're all bedded.
Yeah. Yeah. You notice when it rained and it was raining, when it was blowing down the mountain, they all turned away from it. And then half hour later it switched and they all stood up and turned
except for the young one. He was a little confused.
Yeah, he doesn't know quite yet.
He's learning though. So we talked about all these pluses about llamas. I think we need to tell the people at home, what are like, maybe if there is any, what are some cons to llamas?
You know, the truth of the matter is that llamas are not really good at anything to deal with ice. They do good in snow as long as it's not past their belly. So when it comes to snow, it doesn't really matter if it's, you know, crusty and old or if it's fresh and new. Once it's up to their belly, they have to hop, which takes a ton of energy. And so that's really tough on them. And they're not really good on ice. They just don't have any traction. And so if you got to climb uphill at any kind of degree and it's icy, it's really hard for them to get on that. And if it's icy for you, it's icy for them. So that's kind of what it comes down to. And then, you know, llamas in heat, you know, you got to be careful if you're going to be in exposed places and it's above 85 degrees. Like hunting Nevada, I have guys that rent llamas and they go hunt Nevada and it's, you know, 95 to 105 degrees in August and there's no shade. I'm like, guys, like that's really hard. Just imagine you being out there, you know, exposed to that and working with the heavy load. It's like, so what I tell them is like, just, llamas get heat exhaustion just like humans. It's a very similar situation in which you would do that. And so hike in the mornings, get your distance in and then shade up. to be smart about it. Do the same thing the deer do. Don't be out working your balls off in the middle of the day. Bed up. And so those are two or three things that they're not really good at. And then inherently llamas, like when you go to, llamas are not like a dog or a cat. They don't need to be pet and touched. They like to work, and so llamas will get bored in camp after 4 or 5 days if you're not using them. And so you kind of want to, after a while, they'll stay there for 10 days, but you'll notice they'll start to get bored. And then because you have an animal, you have to take care of them. And so people think that, well, llamas are easier to take care of than horses. So that means they don't have to take care of them. That's not the case. I mean, you still have to take care of them. You still have to put time into it. And at camp, you have to move them and stake them out and make sure they have water and feed. And so one of the cons is that you have to take care of something else besides yourself, right? It's not just you taking care of yourself and thinking about yourself. You have to take care of the animals. And then if you own llamas, you have costs associated with it. But I would say that the benefits highly outweigh the $400 a year it costs and the initial principle of buying the animal. And the rewards are so fantastic. The llamas love it, and they love it. They love to go. I can pull up to my pasture, and most of my boys will be ready to rock and roll and come right to the trailer and say, "Okay, let's go. I know what's happening."
Yeah, they know what's going on.
Like they're bred for it. And so those are some of the cons, I think. There's other probably small ones that I'm not thinking about, but those are some of the major ones.
I'd say a pro is you don't have to shoe them, correct?
Don't have to shoe them.
Their feet, I noticed something. Me and Matt noticed something coming out of there. I actually noticed this going in, but if I was to have been an hour behind us going up that trail, I would have thought that I was on the Mecca of elk sign because their hoofs prints look just like an elk, I think.
They really do, yeah.
Maybe a little more spread out. Is their bottom of their foot softer than like an elk hoof, would you say?
Yeah, it's definitely softer. It has basically more absorption on their pad when they hit the ground. But it has a very, very rough leather, like a dog, even tougher than a dog's pad. And then they have 2 nails at the end. And a lot of people, you want to trim those nails every year, but when it comes to pack season, I leave them a tiny bit long. And so that they do have traction when it's wet and bad and icy, just a half-inch long. It's kind of adds like a little spike. Okay. And so what they can grip on is amazing, and some of the best llamas, they'll be going through some rock and they'll put their front left or the front right down and all 3 other legs are in the air. And they'll bounce their whole body and weight with one leg. They're extremely athletic.
Wow.
And I tell that to people, like, what are we talking about? Llamas athletic? I'm like, yeah, I'm telling you, just after packing with them, you'll see,
Mountain athletes is what they are.
Mountain athletes. Yeah.
Well, guys, I think we need to wrap it up. If you guys haven't watched this video, I'd highly recommend going and watching the video. Also, I would highly recommend looking into, Beau, plug your website. How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so we're terrible at Instagram, but I do have a little Instagram page, Beau Baty, and then Wilderness Ridge Trail Llama. Wilderness Ridge Trail Llamas on, Instagram as well, and that's our website name is Wilderness Ridge Trail Llamas. So you can look us up, and our main web page will take you to a couple of other businesses and websites where we operate in different locations, such as Wildland Llamas and Wilderness Ridge Adventures. But the main website, Wilderness Ridge Trail Llamas, will kind of direct you to all the places we operate and the different offerings we have. And thanks for letting us plug the business, Casey. I appreciate it.
Oh man, I appreciate you letting us set the llamas up. But yeah, so if you guys are at home, and Beau offers a couple different services. He does trail or backcountry pack-in trips in the summertime where he will take you in, you and your family, you and your buddies, however you want to do it. We'll take you in somewhere. If you want it to be fishing based, he'll take you into some world-renowned fishing with his llamas. You can experience the llamas that way. And then in the fall, if you're wanting to do like a DIY llama rental, he offers that as well. And you have pickups in how many states now?
Yeah, 5 states. So yeah, basically Idaho, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana, I think.
Montana.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're thinking about doing it for next fall, 2022, I would get on the schedule because you guys are pretty much booked out this year, right?
Yeah, we're booked up this year. Believe it or not, we have a couple days left. We had a couple cancellations due to some of the fires. And August 5th, today, people in Idaho were able to buy second elk tags.
Yep.
And so I think we're going to book up here, but we have a few days left in October. And the last 5 days of September, we just had a big cancellation of 10 llamas. And so,
So there you go. If you're looking to do something this year, the last week of September and the first week of October, you say?
yep,
So get on Wilderness Ridge Trail Llamas.
that's right, man.
.com and book you up some llamas. I know I have a lot of things happening in my head and have since we got home from that trip of how I want to utilize llamas in the near future. And I know you guys think I'm crazy, but I might own a couple llamas if Beau will sell me the right ones. You think?
You are seriously hunting these guys down. I can't tell if you're serious or joking me, but
I am 100%. You know how many times like I've been on the phone late at night, like talking to my neighbor about finding me a good horse because I'm gonna try to be a horse guy. And when it comes down to it, he'll find him and he'll be like, "This is the right horse." And I was like, "I can't do it, man. I don't know if I can do it." Llamas, I'm in, man.
okay,
I'm in like Flynn. So anyway, thank you, Beau, for taking us back into the backcountry. Ryan, as always, man, we appreciate your guys' relationship at Camp Chef. Absolutely love your guys' products. Been using them for years. Going to continue to use them. Guys, you know what we say. If you get the right equipment, get you some Camp Chef gear, learn how to use it, learn how to cook, you can eat like a king anywhere. And so you guys got anything coming up this year new, Ryan?
We got some good stuff for 2022. So be on the lookout for that. You always check us out, campchef.com, or just watch the Hush and stuff. You'll see us there.
Love it. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys watching the Hushlife podcast. Like I said, we're getting here real close to fall. We're going to try to keep these things as consistent as possible. Kind of our game plan with this podcast is like we did today. Like we do a big trip, we get back from it, we roll out the video for the trip, and then we're going to try to do a podcast with whoever was on that trip and kind of get into more in depth of what we were doing, what was going on. I really wanted Beau to talk about his llamas today, Ryan to talk about some Camp Chef gear that we used. But like we're going to Alaska is going to be the first trip. We're definitely going to podcast about our Alaska trip after we're done. So hopefully you guys like that. If you guys have any recommendations of what you want us to podcast about, let us know down in the down below. And we just appreciate your guys' support. So signing off for the Hushlife podcast today. We will see you next time.